So, welcome, Gabe. Let me start. My first question, which you saw in advance, was to ask you to talk a little bit about what it was like to take on directing a brand new play for its world premiere.
Well, honestly, it's super cool in hindsight. And I think most of what I found to be cool about it was in hindsight. I didn't worry too much about it in the actual process of it, or even accepting the job of directing it. The fact that it was a world premiere didn't necessarily stick out that much to me. I've done a couple other plays where I had the opportunity to see what other people did with the production. And whenever I kind of explored that, I always felt kind of meh about what I saw other people do. And like, I never really took anything from what I saw from other people. If anything, I'm like, okay, that's what I don't want to do. So it was really cool to show the playwright her work performed on stage for the first time ever. I think that was my favorite part of the whole thing, was sitting near Suzanne, enjoying it every time she came and saw the play. And the fact that we were able to find some little jokes and gimmicks here and there through the creative process that she has since decided to make officially part of the play. That's really cool. It's really cool to be a part of the building process of what the play was to become. Mm-hmm. Because I think that there is, for her, and you'd have to ask her this more, but I think there's a more solid vision of what the play actually looks like and how it works than there was when it was just on paper or having just had read-throughs done of it.
Right. Yeah. Yes, I would imagine it's very hard for a playwright. You have your vision in your head. Mm-hmm. But you don't really know how it's all going to work until you can see it actually up and mm-hmm. running. So it was really hindsight for you to think about what was going on and how this was. You weren't stressed by the idea that here you had to show the playwright something brand new and not know at all what it was going to look like.
No, not. And maybe if it was a different play, there would be. But this play really does speak to my strengths a lot. That kind of larger than life comedy. There's a lot of room for physical gimmicks to be created and for little jokes to be thrown in, and for just the improvisational process of creativity to build and add on to what's already on the page.
Right.
If it was something more akin to like a comedy of manners, like The Importance of Being Earnest or something, and I was dealing with some very high concept, heady, highly cultured comedy that the playwright, really had a lot of ideas inside, and then I probably would have been a little bit more. But the closest OutCast I think has done to anything like that was about dildos. So
you mean the high art, the high art comedy?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything. Yeah, of course. Oscar Wilde and Noel Coward are like two of my faves. Both as an actor and as a director. So that's the kind of humor I like, because I like having to deal with the timing of that.
Absolutely.
How important the pace.
Yeah. And I love them too.
Yeah.
I would be more stressed directing a
that.
play by one of them.
Right. Well, now you know why we asked you to direct this.
Yeah.
Because it was speaking to your strength.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So when you first got the script and you had an opportunity to look at it, what was the vision like for you? What was your vision for this play?
Well, it clearly has to be funny, and it has to be fast. And that's really the main things. The play has a lot of funny stuff already written in, but it's not written fast. It's not like a piece of music where it says this many beats per minute. Right. But that's kind of how I think about theater when I'm acting, and now when I'm directing, I'm still a pretty fresh director. Is how many beats per minute do you want? And something like this, you want a lot. You want it to be very, very fast, and it to be really well paced, because there's not a lot of plot that you need to follow. So what you don't want to kind of build the tension too much. You just want to get to the part where the play's happening. There's other plays where you want the audience to just be kind of on the edge of their seats waiting for what's going to happen next. And in something like this, you want it to be what's happening next is what they're watching already, because I don't know, it's an aesthetic that I kind of have, especially with a comedy, is I personally want the audience to feel on the edge of their seats, because they are feeling like otherwise they're going to miss the play. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's like a panicked humor to that. Yeah. And that you don't get in something that's more thought. And if this was performed in a more thoughtful way, it wouldn't be as funny. Because, so many reasons. You'll see the parts that take longer. You at home watching this are the long drawn out bits where I just got obsessed with a moment and wanted to indulge my creativity there. Because something that I noticed about this play, which is sort of a vision that came up halfway through directing, not when I began it, was this play is about a few people who are trying to kill each other. And I never got watching some of those older comedies. There's like some comedy movies from maybe like the 80s or 90s. I remember one starring Kevin Kline where like his wife was trying to kill him. And there's these like zany comedies that are about people trying to kill each other, and it's like off the wall and wacky, and it's never as dark as something should be. I think that's about people trying to murder each other. I feel like I found some darkness here.
Well, there's definitely opportunity, right?
And it's exactly. And it's never hyper realistic. I don't think anyone is under the impression that someone's going to die at any point. But I do remember when we had our preview night and we had 4 or 5 very lovely, supportive community members watching the show. And there was a lot of, there was more gasps than laughs, I remember. And I remember really enjoying that from my seat.
a few moments where breaths were held.
Yeah, it was different in a crowd full of people.
Yeah.
But in a small crowd, I think they were worried that they were seeing something that should be reported.
You talk about those movies from the 80s and 90s. I'm thinking like Death Becomes Her.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes. I don't think they felt like an audience. I think they felt like witnesses.
Right. So to sort of recap, your vision was really to not only the pacing, but to keep your audience constantly feeling like they were in it.
Yeah.
From each moment to moment, and definitely some scenes were more built up than others. But,
exactly. Yeah. And I like to, of course you have to hold for laughter, but as soon as you feel like the laughter is stopping,
go.
Yeah. Continue the play, unless you feel like you can milk it for a few more seconds.
Right.
Because here's the thing about a comedy is it's not like comedies, in my opinion, are all kind of stupid. And I don't think that makes it any less sacred. I think that there's just a stupidity to a lot of the things, except maybe something like Importance of Being Earnest. But there's probably some stupidity in there as well. And certainly that French writer, who's that old French writer?
The playwright or
the playwright.
Geez, I know, because I've done a couple of.
Yeah, I did like Learned Ladies by him.
Moliere?
Yeah, Moliere. He was all about just making fun of the stupidity of people who thought they were intelligent and stuff. And even like if you look back at the Greek comedies, it's like a god came down and gave the entire city of Athens an erection.
Right.
And then the women found out and tied him to a tree and catapulted him to Sparta or something. And but like in a tragedy, it's like this build of tension to the very end, where that's where you get the catharsis, the thing that has to happen that allows everything that was built up to release. But a comedy, the whole thing is the catharsis, and the tension was just the day that you had before you came to the play. That's kind of like, that's how I like to think about it.
Yeah. Well, to me, what you're talking about too is the different, and whether I would classify this as kind of high comedy or low comedy, is that there's a difference. Like for me, looking at Noel Coward, looking at Moliere even, and looking at Oscar Wilde, it's satire because there's a clear kind of a social message that goes along with the comedy. They're always speaking to something, issues. It's about class, or it's about gender, or it's about something. And then there is farce, which also sometimes can incorporate that social commentary as well. And then there's sort of slapstick comedy. And I don't know exactly where I would place this or what Suzanne's intention was, but I would say it was probably more, I don't know whether I want to say what I think it is, but you probably have an idea because you had to play with it.
Yeah. And also my personal feelings on the matter is that just because there is a high comedy or a low comedy doesn't make one or the other smart comedy or silly comedy. I mean, I think everyone can agree that Monty Python is that's some of the smartest comedy you've ever seen, and they spend most of it talking about how silly the things they're doing are.
Right. Yeah.
They say, "Stop this sketch. This is too silly." And and this play, definitely, the first time you read it, it has a bit of a Monty Python or Faulty Towers feel to it. It's absurd. It's hitting you with a lot of different things at the same time.
Right. Well, and again, all good comedy, whether you call it high or low or whatever in between, there's an intention behind it. And that, I think, is the important piece, because you know the difference between something that's good and something that's not. So, yeah. And of course, in talking about issues that, I mean, to me, I don't know whether you agree as a director or as an actor, I think comedy is harder. Certainly as an actor, I think comedy is harder. I don't think it's necessarily harder for directors if that's what you like, if that's the genre. But timing is such an important component to good comedy.
Yeah.
I almost think it's even more important than in drama.
Yeah, but the thing about comedy that, in my opinion, makes it easier, and like I said before, it speaks to my strengths. Right. So I know that it does come easier to me than to others, but you do get a constant feedback from the audience. They're always giving you notes, and if you're open to it, you could come back on and change your performance in the next scene if you're open to it. But that's hard to do, of course, in the middle of things. But a comment, because you're getting that constant response from the audience, there is a conversation that's natural to a comedy between the audience and the performers. The fourth wall is just thinner in a comedy.
Sometimes it's not there at all.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to my last question for you before I let you go, and that's more that going back to your hindsight. You had talked about the hindsight in terms of directing a brand new play. But in hindsight, when you look back on this experience, what do you see now as sort of the biggest challenges to doing it? And what are your takeaways, whether you call that a success or not, that might inform your future work as a director?
I think that it's always challenging as someone who has mostly done acting to have a specific view of how something will work and then have to help other people find their way to do it. I didn't go home and get super frustrated about it or anything, but in my head, I know how I can make things work. You know, it's not necessarily the same for how other people can work. And you also don't want to come and be like, no, just say it like this.
Right.
You know, you want to let them be them, other people, the actors who are in the play, because they're not you. You know, they're not me. They don't have my rhythms or my voice or my inflections or my wacky face. So they have to do it with their own rhythm, their own voice, and their own wacky face. And also the timing that other people have is funny as well, and it's sometimes not the timing that I have. Mm-hmm. So it really is just a constant reassessment of going between what I can do and then what other people can do, and funneling that into what the play actually is. And I do like it that way. It just is the challenge of the thing, but I don't want to go do a one-man show. You know?
Well, maybe you do.
And I don't really want to direct someone's one-man show either. But no, I don't want to do a one-man show. I say that with all seriousness. So I think that is, you know, and also this play had a very kind of specific set that it needed to have, specific set pieces that needed to work for some specific gags that were highly unlikely to ever work. And we had to find a way to make them work.
Right.
And we did. But I think that the way that they were imagined from the mind of the brilliant playwright was something that would be hard to make work in a theater, much less the black box at OutCast. It felt like she was thinking kind of cinematically for a lot of the jokes, which I love, because spectacle is just fantastic. I mean, comedy is really just trying to synthesize little smaller skeptic or what was the word I just said?
Cinematic.
I'm forgetting what I said. The spectacle.
Yes.
Got a little dyslexic there. So
putting Ben-Hur on the stage.
Exactly. Not Ben-Hur specifically, but you know,
the idea.
Yeah, the Ben-Hur type.
Yeah.
Prop gag with a chair.
Right. Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because, you know, I mean, imagine if we weren't a black box and we were a big stage that had, you know, had under the stage possibilities and had lots of fly time, and you could drop things in and out, and you know, that's great. So in some ways it's more of a challenge to do it in a black box space, but it also offers a different kind of creativity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that for this play to be well, not done right, I think that we did it fantastic. I mean, people were laughing the whole time, and that's all you need from a comedy. To take it from the page as it's written and not find little ways to make things work with what you have. You need to have a bigger stage, a bigger budget, and you need to have a young, spry stage crew that can run around and do a lot of things backstage to make a lot of those things work.
Right.
I hope, and I hope to see it done that way sometime, because I think it'd be hilarious.
Yeah. It would be. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see somebody else's vision of this play in a different kind of space.
Yeah, like I said, I don't really like seeing other people's visions.
But after you've done yours,
then
it doesn't matter as much, right?
Yeah, I really love to think of plays, and especially a lot of the newer stuff that OutCast has done, like Bollywood and Vine, when I was involved with that, and think of what these would be like if they were done on Broadway, with all of those bells and whistles and stuff. I think both of those plays that Bollywood and Vine and this would be very, very cool to see on a huge stage with a huge production and Nathan Lane.
And tons of money.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Way, way beyond our budgets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And I really appreciate, I mean, as we kind of wind this up, what I really appreciate you talking about in terms of the hindsight is that and this is something I find with directors who have been actors, where maybe acting has been their primary up to a point, is that there's often a certain kind of attention to the collaborative process that's different than somebody who has never acted and just directed. And again, you were speaking to that. It's the idea that you have to let the actor find their character and find their way to that character without, we talk a lot about not giving them line readings, right? We don't want to tell them how to say the line. We want to give them a sense of what we're looking for, but they have to find it. And I think that collaborative process is where both parties come up with new ideas.
Yeah. And I truly believe this, that my best ideas, whether I'm directing or acting, are going to come to me at rehearsal. And I know that a lot of people don't work that way. A lot of people work where they get all these ideas at home and they build them into their performance, and they stand in the mirror and they're like, how am I going to say this? To me, I think because theater is so instant, and it's a new moment every single time you do the play, every single scene, every single line, that when I'm at home thinking too much about it, I feel like I'm stuck in a mind loop and not creating. So really, that's why my main vision for the play was it has to be fast, it has to be funny.
Right.
And then just see what happens with that if those are the main things that I kind of direct. Faster and funnier.
Yeah.
Faster and louder.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that a good example of the creative process is Sandy O'Brien, who's in this, is not the fastest performer. However, she's incredibly funny in this. So I had to learn that I mean, and I knew that already too, so I didn't have to learn that. But the way that she was going to perform this was different from my vision. It's different from how I would do it if I was playing her role, which is just one of those little things that's a clear example of how the creative process works.
Right.
Is I take what I want for the play, the actor comes to the rehearsal and shows, this is what I do. And I don't think that telling Sandy necessarily to do something faster would be the right choice, except maybe in a couple specific moments. And then because she's got her rhythm and it is a slow burn. And that's a wonderful kind of humor that is a struggle that I struggle to find. I have a breakneck pace humor.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's respecting those differences and finding what works.
Yeah, and it's
adapting.
Such a great way to just a change of pace. Her role, really, I started to see it as this wrench that was being thrown into the cogs of the machine that was making this play move forward. Like every time she spoke, the play had to stop for a second and be like, well, now what?
Yeah. Which was perfectly appropriate for that character.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, great. Any last minute things you want to say about this experience with this play before we let you go?
Well, it was enjoy. Have fun watching the play. I don't think that there's anything to say other than what I've said. I'm proud of it. I think that we made a very funny play. I got to see people in it do, in my opinion, some of the best work that I've seen them do. So,
great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.